Hello, my dear friends. Today is Tisha B'Av. As you can see in the window and in the background, the sun is setting. It's almost nighttime. Tisha B'Av is the saddest day of the year. And I want to share with you a few thoughts that were floating around in my head, swimming in there someplace that I had today during Tisha B'Av. This morning I sat in shul together with the congregation. We were reciting kinos. One of the most moving kinos, and all of the kinos are so powerful and evoke so much emotion, the pain and the suffering of the Jewish people, from the Haftarah of Yirmiyahu Hanavi, how he laments the destruction, and the Eicha that we read yesterday, and the Kinos describes the destruction of different periods of Jewish history. One of the saddest and the most moving moments of reading the Kinos is Eila Esker. It's about the Eila Esker means these I remember. It's about the Asara Rugi Malchus, the 10 great scribes who died at the hands of the Romans. How they were tortured and put to death. And it evoked in my mind a memory of my father, Olav Hashalom. My father's yahrzeit was 2 days ago. It was Zionov, just 2 days ago. And I'm sitting and I'm remembering from years back. My memory bank held on to a memory from at least 65 years ago. I was in a bungalow colony with my parents and my brother and sister in Woodbridge, New York. It was called Greenwalds. You see how much I remember. I even remember the name of the colony. And we were in Greenwalds, and they had, as a shul, they used the casino as a makeshift shul. I remember on the day of Tisha B'Av sitting next to my father, and I'll tell you how I know it was Tisha B'Av in a moment. I was sitting next to my father, and my father was reading the Kinos, and there were tears streaming down his face on both sides. And even though I was a little boy, but I needed to know, why is my father crying so much? And my father said, Yankee, this is so sad. This is how the Romans murdered the 10 great Torah scribes, the 10 great Talmidei Chachamim, and it's so sad. And it made such an impression on me, not only because my father was reading the Kinos, but the emotion that my father had and his capacity to feel pain for somebody else. And this was, he was able to identify with an event that took place 2,000 years ago. I was thinking, I don't have that ability. I don't come close to my father. I'm not able to feel emotion, even something that happened more recently. I'm not so empathetic. My father had a tremendous capacity to commiserate with people and to feel their pain, and when they were happy, and when there's a simcha, to feel the joy. He had an unbelievable smile. His whole face lit up, and he was able to connect in such a profound and powerful way. And his religious feelings, and it was a combination of the fact that the suffering of the Asari Rugi Malchus, and also the fact that these were the 10 of the greatest Torah scholars, 10 of the greatest leaders of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, throughout Jewish history. So my father had such strong and powerful and deep religious feelings and emotions and compassion. And it reminded me of another episode with my father. My uncle got married maybe a year or two later, and my grandfather had recently passed away within a year, I believe. And my grandmother had passed away about 15 years before. My father was a young boy when my grandmother passed away. He was 12 or 13 years old. And my uncle got married. My uncle, when my grandmother passed away, my uncle was a little baby. He was just also my uncle was married when he was already 23. So it was 22 years beforehand that my grandmother had passed away. But my grandfather had just passed away within the year. And who was going to take my uncle to the chuppah? My uncle Nicky. It was my father and my mother, Aleichem Hashalom. And they marched down with my uncle, and my father's face was soaking wet. The tears were just streaming. And it's normal. Many people would cry under those circumstances. The parent is gone. Both parents are gone. And my uncle, it was a yasam, and my father. But my father it made such a profound impact on me, impression, because it wasn't just that he was crying, he was gushing the tears, and my father was so profoundly emotional. And as I was thinking about these this morning while we were reading the Kines, I was thinking how you see how a parent has such a profound impression on children. This is 65 years ago or 63 years ago, and still I could see it like yesterday. And it inspires me that a person has to be compassionate, and a person has to be feeling, and a person has to be emotional, and a person in religious the avoda, is religious service to Hashem. There has to be an intensity and tremendous feeling. I got that from my father, and you see how it leaves an impression. As I was thinking, I remembered another thing about my father. My father, when we were in the bungalow colony, my father made a point of learning with me every day. My father was very busy, and he needed the summer to prepare for the coming year, his drushes and this and that. But he put aside an hour every morning. We used to sit outside the bungalow on a beach chair in Greenwald's bungalow colony, and he used to go with me. And the year before I started learning Gemara, my father learned with me an hour. I didn't understand very much of it, what was going on, but it was such a meaningful experience for me to be sitting next to my father and learning the Gemara, that even though I was just starting and my father was already a major Talmid Chacham, but it meant so much to me to sit next to my father. So the takeaway message that I want to share with you is that we underestimate the impact that we can have on others, whether it's on our children or our grandchildren or just anybody, even on a stranger. You could make an impact and an impression on people by the way we conduct ourselves, and there's opportunities as Jews we can make. Everybody knows that we're Jewish. We can make a Kiddush Hashem. When I was when I was in Switzerland last week, so we flew into Zurich, and we went by car service to St. Moritz. It was a 3-hour trip, and the cab driver, or the car service driver, he was a Christian. I don't remember. I think he wasn't maybe he was Italian. I don't remember, but he was a very religious person, and he was sharing with me how he felt about different things, and I was talking to him, and I was commiserating with him, and he said to me, "Rabbi, you have a very comforting voice." I wasn't doing anything special, but I made an impression on him. He said, "You have a comforting voice." And there's so many opportunities. We interact with people all the time, and people see us, and whether it's on the train or in our office or in shul, the way we conduct ourselves, it leaves an impression. That's my main point here. Our behavior leaves an impression, and you never know. It could be an impression that could last 50, 60, 70 years. It's amazing how impressionable the human soul is, and how we could leave an impression. And here, these thoughts about my father, they still inspire me after so many years. They inspire me, the way he learned Gemara, the way that he cared about his brother, the way that he was able to feel the pain of the Jewish people for the events that took place thousands of years ago. It inspires me to this day. And each one of us, whether it's our children, our grandchildren, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters, our relatives, our congregants, our friends, our neighbors, our business acquaintances, we could make an impression. So I want to share one more thing that inspired me today, and that was I watched the NCSY Kumsitz in Yerushalayim, and we say Kines, and we think about the Churban, and we try to conjure up in our mind what the Beis HaMikdash was. Very, very hard. I'm telling you, I was more so than by the Kines. There were so many parts of the Kines that moved me, but more so than the Kines today, I was moved by watching the young people in NCSY. There must have been thousands of young people. NCSY has these tremendous programs for the youth in Eretz Yisrael, and I only saw the men. The girls were on the other side. They were singing, and there were tears coming. Young boys, 13, 14 years old. They were wearing the tzitzis over their shirt. maybe because they normally don't even wear tzitzis, but they put it on for Tisha B'Av. I don't know. But you could see the young boys, and they're not, we wouldn't call them B'nai Torah. They're on their way. But they're young boys. But it was so profound, so amazing. The feeling and the way they were shuckling and the unity and the achdos and together and everybody, it left such a profound impact on me. And it shows how, and you had in the background, what you couldn't have a better background setting than the Kosa Hamaravi and the Har Habayis right behind these young men with their counselors, and they're just so inspired on Tisha B'Av, and they were singing the songs with so much fervor and passion and feeling, and that also inspired me, and it demonstrates how a Jewish soul is so precious. We talk about the Pintel Yid. Deep down, you might be listening to this, you say, I don't feel these kind of things. Everybody has, deep down, underneath all the layers, every Jew has a Pintel Yid, and that Pintel Yid is so responsive and so sensitive and so feeling and so passionate, and you just have to be able to find a way to get to the Pintel Yid. One last story. I told this before, but I just, as I'm speaking, it ties in. I was in the Kennedy in the JFK airport about 15 years ago. I was going to visit my father in Eretz Yisrael, and there was an Israeli family, and they were loud. They weren't observant. Apparently, they weren't wearing yarmulkes, and they were eating garinim and throwing them on the floor. I thought, look at these Israelis, they're so noisy and loud. And then on the plane, I don't remember if the person, I don't want to say lashon hara about this person. Maybe he did eat kosher, maybe he didn't. I don't know, but on the plane, his behavior was the same. I just was so unimpressed with this person. So what happens? I come to my father's house right away from the airport. Go straight to my father, the kibbutz Rav, and I spent at least a half hour with my father. But then I ran to the Kosel Maravi, to the Kotel, and as I'm coming into the Kosel courtyard, who do you think I see there? This guy, this Israeli fellow who I had thought of with disdain. He had perched on top of his head a yarmulke that they make with staples and paper, and he was standing at the Kosel with his family. And I thought to myself, shame on you! Look how you put down this guy. He beat you to the Kosel Maravi. He got here first, and that was I was doing kibbutz Rav, but the first thing he did, he went straight to the Kosel to be by the Kosel Maravi. Unbelievable. And you see that we dismiss people. We think, this guy, that guy, this person, this woman, that man, they're no good, this and that. It's such a terrible mistake. Everybody has tremendous depth and tremendous tochen and tremendous feeling, and all you have to do is connect to that little point. And it's like if you touch a nerve, if you go to a dentist and the dentist accidentally touches your nerve, you fly out of the chair. That's the human heart, the leiv, the neshama is far more sensitive, and it has tremendous capacity for feeling and emotion and religious feeling, and we have to find a way to inspire ourselves, but we at the same time we have to remember that everybody that we interact with, we're leaving an impression. And if we make a positive impression, that's great. And if we don't make a positive impression, it's an opportunity lost. And if we make a negative impression, it's a tragedy. And we have to think about that. And these are the thoughts that came to me today as I was sitting in shul saying Kinas. The Tisha B'Av is a day of Churban. It's up to us to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, and even before the actual structure comes about. But we could be engaged in binyan, not steer. There's so much steer. There's so much destruction in the world. We have to be engaged in building binyan. And the Mitzvah Shem, the Tisha B'Av, it says, the Chazal say the Tisha B'Av will be transformed to a yontif in the day of Simcha. Mitzvah Shem, that should take place. B'mheira v'yameinu, amen.